Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Warrant Officer Jared Goff. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant John Christian Stephenson, whose story will be told shortly. We also warmly welcome the representatives of the Embassy of the United States of America and the accompanying delegation from the Australian Defence Force. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant John Christian Stephenson. John Stephenson was born on the 29th of June 1890 in Hamilton, New South Wales, the eldest son of 14 children born to John and Clara Stephenson. Affectionately known as Jack, he grew up in West Wyalong where he attended school and played on the local football team. He was remembered as one of the district's best players. At the outbreak of war in 1914, he was working as a farmer in the local region. Stephenson was among the first Australians to volunteer, enlisting in the Australian Imperial Force on the 22nd of August 1914. He joined the newly raised 2nd Battalion and was given a large send-off in the local town hall before leaving for training. In mid-October that year, he embarked from Sydney on board the troop ship Suffolk as a private. Private Stephenson arrived in Egypt in early November 1914, where he underwent further training with his unit for several more months. Before being sent to the front, Stephenson was promoted to Lance Corporal. On the 25th of April 1915, Stephenson was among the first Anzac troops to land on the Gallipoli Peninsula, marking the start of a 9-month campaign. In August, Stephenson fought with his unit during the Battle of Lone Pine, which cost over 2,000 Australian casualties. 2 months later, in October, Lance Corporal Stephenson contracted influenza. Initially treated on the peninsula, he was eventually sent back to Egypt to recover in hospital in Alexandria. He rejoined his unit at Tel el-Kebir in mid-January 1916 after the Allied evacuation from Gallipoli. In March 1916, Stephenson was promoted to corporal and undertook training as a signaller before embarking for the Western Front. On its arrival, the 2nd Battalion was sent to the Somme Valley, where it took part in its first major battle on the Western Front at Pozières in July. Corporal Stephenson and his comrade were awarded the Military Medal for repairing communications cables under fire. His recommendation read, "These two did great work time after time under heavy shell fire. They also displayed great initiative in salvaging old cable for this work when ours had run out. And what communication was kept up by telephone was only due to the energy and courage displayed by these men who worked under extreme difficulties." Promoted to a sergeant in August 1916, in October he was granted a few days' leave in England. He rejoined his unit and they continued fighting around Ypres in Belgium before returning to the Somme during the bitterly cold winter of 1916 and 1917. In May 1917, Stephenson fought with his battalion at the Second Battle of Bullecourt, where Australian units took 7,000 casualties. In July 1917, Stephenson fell ill for a second time and was sent to England, where he was admitted to hospital in Birmingham to recover. After recovering from his illness, Stephenson was granted leave in England before commencing further training in signals. In early 1918, he was placed on command at the Brigade Signal School for a month before returning to the front in May, where Australian units had been committed to the campaign at Ypres. On the 26th of June 1918, Stephenson was serving with his unit in the front lines around Strazel. At night, he went out to repair and examine communication cables when he was struck by a shell and badly injured. His comrades called for stretcher bearers, who took him to a nearby aid post where he died. They noted that he was unconscious the whole time, so never could have felt pain. His brother William, who was serving in the same area at the time of his death, relayed the sad news to their parents in West Wyalong. In Australia, the local newspaper reported the young sergeant's death. From his boyhood days until he reached manhood, he displayed all the admirable qualities which make a good citizen: honesty, integrity and industry. It is safe to say that no braver, more honourable or more conscientious soldier has graced the King's uniform than he who has just laid down his life. Sergeant John Stephenson was buried near where he fell, at Bory British Cemetery in France. He was 3 days shy of his 28th birthday. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant John Christian Stephenson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.